So now we're going to get to arranging the track. I've got to a point where I feel like I've got all the elements of my beat. I don't want to clutter up my beat, so I'm keeping it fairly minimal because that's what I'm going for on this track. But to this point, I haven't been thinking about the arrangement at all, and I think this is a really great tip. For me, if you start thinking about the arrangement too early, again, you can lose your creative flow. So I wanted to write a synth riff. I wanted to write the beat, I wanted to write some bass, I wanted to write a synth hook. I didn't want to think about when these things are going to come in and drop out and how the tracks. I just wanted to get creative and write all those parts and get ballpark synth sounds that work for me. And I've got that now, and this is what we've got when everything's in together. Okay, another little tip before you start arranging, just go through and sort of set your levels again. I can even bring up the mixer like this, so every piece of software will have a mixing window like this. You've got, let's just delete that. You've got your master here, so this is where everything goes. Really, that should be set to 0. You've got your click, don't need that at the moment, mute it. And then I've got all my different parts, and what I want to do now is just get the levels good. So what I might do is bring everything down apart from the master, keep that at 0, and go, right, let's have my main riff. As you can see, I group them together so the faders move, but if I ungroup it, what you don't want to do is you don't want to pump everything really loud. So here in the master, you're distorting, because if I do that, it leaves me no headroom and everything starts to distort and everything's horrible. I really want to be trying to keep things around this sort of -10, -15 in the master, because you can always turn it up later, but it's really hard to turn things down later. So you can see I've leveled things out kind of to a basic level. It's not going to be perfect now, but I'm keeping that master around the sort of -10 because I don't want to be distorting everything. Come out of my mixer window and I can actually start thinking about the arrangement. So here's a great little tip that I've certainly developed over here. In this big section here, I was just writing and just layering up loads of sounds. And then I kind of just go, right, I'm going to arrange now. So I'm going to sort of start again. I really advise learning how to do markers on your piece of software, because it can really helps me in a sort of visual sense as to what I'm doing. So I've sort of just come over here in my track and I'm going the intro. So I make a new marker and I call it intro. In Pro Tools you just hit the plus there, but in your software, Google it, learn how to make markers. And I decided I want my track to start with the main riff, pretty obvious, and I just wanted to use the bubble sound and the strings. So, and, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120 And at this point, I did something that's slightly complicated, and it's not going to be shown how to do in today's video, but I did a little filter sweep with this vintage filter on the strings. So if you watch this, I programmed it to slowly let more top end in. If you watch it here. And that's a pretty great intro for a song. That's introduces the main riff, and then having that filter sweep keeps it interesting, and it always gives you the sense of what's coming up. And then I decided I wanted to smash in with a chorus straight away. So I brought my kick, my snare, my hi-hat all in, my bass in, and I switched the main riff to a more harsher sound, so you get this sort of feel as it goes into the chorus. And then at this point, decided to introduce the strings back in. You just got to keep people interested all the time. So all the time, little changes have got to be happening just to keep the music interesting. And then I decided after this chorus, I wanted to get to a verse. So my little shortcut chorus is C, C1, V for verse. And I thought after the chorus, I want to bring it right down. So here's the end of the chorus going into the verse. So I really like what happens there. Drums keep going, bass keeps going, but then I switch back to this bubbles sound. That's again just really soft. So you go from the hard sounding chorus to a soft sounding verse. And all I'm doing is I'm just copying and pasting everything I made earlier on from here. All the elements are here, and I'm now just arranging them in different orders, and you can see the change in mood it can bring by just bringing things in and out. I think at halfway through the verse I brought the strings in again with a filter sweep. I then decided I wanted to do a build. Slight typo there, how embarrassing. So I'll just bring up my marker and build. There we go. So I wanted to take the snare. Sometimes taking the drums out can bring the track right down to then help you build it up again. Decided to keep the hi-hat in on its own because it just brought something else to it. I liked the tail of my riff, so right here I just decided just to bring everything back for the tail and back into another chorus, everything in again. But you know that synth hook that I wrote earlier, haven't used it yet, and this was the point of the synth hook. It's not the most important part of the track, but if I save it for a bit later on, it can then add a new interest just as things are starting to get boring. And you can see how this worked through. I got to another verse, cut some things out. I think this time, to make it different, for the first time in the beat, let's lose the main riff. Let's just, what happens if we just don't have the main riff for a section? Suddenly you get to focus on the drums and the bass a bit more, and that just, it's like a little bit of a relief from the main riff. And then when you bring it back, you get the effect of it hitting again. notice I'm always naming these, so I've got it's really easy for me to see what's going on. I go to another build, hitting up to another chorus. And again, you know, you've got to think about at what point in the process you're in. So I know I'm making this beat to send to a rapper stroke singer to write their part to. I'm not sending them the final mix. So there's no point spending hours and hours on things like EQs and compression and even the arrangement of the mix. I've just quickly, in 5 minutes, I've done a really cool little arrangement, which can change at any time. But I want to do arrangement around 3 to 4 minutes for them to write to. I'll get all my levels, and then I'll bounce the track to send to them to see, one, if they might hate it. They might go, I absolutely hate this. Well, if you've spent 4 days on it and they hate it, probably wasting your time. But if you spent a couple of hours just getting some cool little ideas together and just having fun, if they hate it, fair enough. If you like it, you can find someone else to write to it. If you, on reflection, go, yeah, it wasn't my best work, you've only spent a couple of hours on it, you can do another one, learn from it, get better. But if you put all your eggs in that basket and you try and mix it before it's even been written, you're kind of wasting your time, and you also don't know what you're mixing to. So you'll notice in this video, I'm not even talking about mixing elements. We're just making a beat. And you can see I've completed my sort of 3-minute beat, and I would bounce it. So you've got to select the beginning and the end, bounce it. If you Google how to bounce tracks out of your piece of software, I bounced it as an MP3, and then I would send it to my singer and go, what do you reckon? And then you hope they get back to you and go, it's amazing. And you hope pretty soon they write something to it. And then at some point you can record those vocals and then really start making it into a track. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed some of the tips I've thrown out in this video. Yeah, have fun making some beats. I want to hear them.